네, 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 10시부터 2021
May I have your attention, please? In a little moment, starting 10 a.m., the opening ceremony for 2021 International Conference on Coal Phase-Out and Proactive Response to Climate Crisis will begin. So, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to the event venue. Thank you. Also, for the safe and pleasant event. Participation. Thank you.
여러분 양승조 충남지사님을 비롯해서
Ladies and gentlemen, VIP guests, including Governor Yang and the Chief Director Kim, are entering the venue. Please give them a big round of applause. Welcome, everyone.
그리고 정의로운 전환을 위한 우리의
International Conference on Carbon Phase Out and Carbon Neutrality
여러분 모두에게 오늘 보람과 그리고
and Proactive Response to Climate Crisis is being held.
가득한 자리가 되기를
And I
소망합니다.
hope that today's event will be a very productive one for everyone.
선제할 수 있고 그리고 함께
Being able to
대응할 수 있고
take proactive actions and being able
수비할 수
to
있고
respond
나눌 수
together.
있는 이 뜻깊은 자리가 되기를 진심으로
I'm hoping that today's event will be served as a meaningful one.
네, 아울러 함께 해주신 취재 기자 여러분께도 감사의 말씀을
Once again, I
드립니다.
thank
여러분
you
어서 오십시오.
to the media joining today.
탄소 중립을
Welcome,
위해서
everybody.
정의로운 전환을 함께 시도하는 우리의 약속이 함께 펼쳐지는
Today is
현장이
the
되겠습니다.
event
여러분
where we
함께
see
사회를
our
지향하는
promise
대단히
being
기쁘게
met.
생각합니다.
It is a
저는
great
충남과 함께하고
honor
있는
for me
아나운서
to
김병찬입니다.
be an
여러분
MC for
어서
today's
오십시오.
event. My name is Kim Byung-chan.
Good morning. I'm your MC 병찬 Kim. It's very good to see you this morning. 네, 감사합니다. 오늘 여러 분을 위해서 랭귀지 서비스
For
함께하고 있습니다.
today's event, we are providing simultaneous interpretation. Channel 1 is Korean, Channel 2 is English. And this morning it rained and it looks like the rain has stopped. But in the Jeju proverb, well, Jeju is actually the biggest island of Korea. And the wedding day, when if it rains, then there'll be happiness for the couple. So as it rained today, it, I hope, means that the happiness will also come to all of us, to our future, and our precious commitment and our first step will see positive results. And I'm hoping that today's event will be a meaningful one for every participant. So, as you can see, the name tag and the brochure is made with recyclable materials. And I hope that these little steps can contribute to a better future. And let me now first introduce to you our distinguished guests. Let me go over one by one. First off, let me introduce to you the Governor Yang Seung-jo of 충청남도 Province. Low birth rate and the aging society and the polarization, including these challenges, Chungnam is leading the way. And also, we are joined today by the Chairperson Yoon Sun-jin of the Presidential Committee of Carbon Neutrality. And let me introduce to you Honorable Simon Smith, the English ambassador to Korea. And next, let me introduce to you Honorable Aina Jensen, the Danish ambassador to Korea. Next, let me introduce to you the chairperson, Kim Myung-sun of the Chungnam Council. Welcome. And Mr. Kim Ji-cheol, Superintendent of Chungcheong Office of Education. And next, let me introduce to you Mr. Kim Dong-il, Mayor of Goryeo of Chungcheongnam Province. Welcome. Please welcome the mayor of Dangjin. Dangjin is the city that's been leading this effort of responding to climate change. Welcome Mr. Kim Hong-jang, mayor of Dangjin. And this is where we have the power plants, and Chungnam definitely is leading this effort. Mr. Hwang Sung-bon of Yesan, Chungnam is also joining with us today. And next is Mr. Kim Ju-jin, Director of Solutions for Our Climate. Thank you for your presence. And let me introduce to you Mr. Kim Dae-yeon, Chief Director of Chungnam Institute of Industry University Convergence. And lastly, please welcome the President Park Sang-jo of Chungnam Institute of Industry University Convergence. I thank you for your effort. And along with these guests, many are joining with us online. And we also have other guests who sent us congratulatory messages. And please give all of us a big hand of encouragement. And now, let us begin today's event that is being held under the theme of carbon neutrality and just transition. And this, I believe, means our specific actions. And let us now begin 2021 International Conference on Coal Phase-Out and Proactive Response to Climate Crisis. And to begin today's event, we'll be having the opening speech delivered by Mr. Kim Dae-yeon, Chair Director of CIUC. Mr. Kim Dae-yeon holds a PhD in philosophy at Bochum University, and he serves as the president of Koso University, and has been working tirelessly in these efforts. Please welcome Mr. Kim. Dear Excellencies, my name is Kim Dae-yeon. I'm the president of CIUC. I'm very pleased to host the 2021 충청남도 International Conference on Coal Phase-Out, Carbon Neutrality, and Proactive Climate Action here in Yesan on this beautiful autumn day in September. I'd like to first thank Governor Yang, who made today's event possible. Also, with this deep interest in the carbon neutrality, all the distinguished guests are joining with us. I thank you all, especially Mr. Kim Myung-sun and Mr. Kim Myung-sun, the chairman at the Chungcheong Education Superintendent, and Kim Ji-chul and other VIP guests. I thank you all for your presence. We are also joined by Honorable Simon Smith, the British Ambassador to Korea, and Einar Jensen, Danish Ambassador to Korea. I thank you for your presence. This international conference, which marks the 5th anniversary this year, aims to explore ways to achieve net zero emissions for future generations through in-depth discussions with experts at home and abroad. And to accomplish this, we have given a special invitation to Chairman Yoon Sun-jin of the Presidential Committee on Carbon Neutrality to hear more about the carbon neutrality and its justification for promoting net zero emissions. Climate change is something that endangers all people and their rights to survive regardless of their specific region. And it needs to involve international cooperation and action. And I hope this conference will lead to active discussions by all guests, national and or international, through the active discussions. And I also hope that today's conference will serve as an occasion where we can have more interest in this issue. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's conference, and I wish all of you the greatest success.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
네, 본 행사를 주관하고 있는 김대현 충남
Thank you for your speech, Chief Director Kim
고맙습니다.
of
저출산과
CIIEC.
탄소중립의 아젠다로
next,
탁월한 리더십에 우리
Let me introduce to you Governor Yang Seung-jo of Chungnam Province. He'll be delivering welcoming speech.
양승조 지사님께서는 어떤 투견업의
Mr. Yang Seung-jo is leading the efforts to achieving the eco-friendly energy transition through phasing out coal. And please welcome Governor Yang.
예, 여러분 대단히 반갑습니다. 충남도지사.
Very warm greetings to you all. I'm Yang Seung-jo, Governor of Chungcheongnam Province.
충남의 담대한 도전은
Chungnam's bold challenge to phasing out coal and carbon neutrality continues this year.
국제 컨퍼런스에 함께 하신 모든 분들을
I'd like to
국민과 함께 진심으로 환영합니다.
welcome who joined us at the 5th International Conference on Coal Phase Out with our 2.2 million residents. Especially, I'd like to thank the global representative in order to be in solidarity with Chungnam, Simon Smith, British Ambassador to Korea, and Aino Jensen, Ambassador to Korea, are joining with us. I thank you for your valuable presence. Also, other distinguished guests, including Yoon Sun-jin,
이끌어오고 계신
as well as Chairman Kim Myung-sun, I thank you for your presence.
도의회장님, 김지철
Especially the Chairman Kim Myung-sun, the Council Chairman of the Council, and the Kim Dong-il Boyoung Mayor, Kim Hong-jung Tangjin Mayor. Thank you all for your presence. And those who are with us through video, Minister Environmental Han Jung-hae, and Special Envoy for Climate Change Jonathan Percy, and Deputy Secretary of Guizhou Province, and EU Ambassador to Korea, Maria Castillo. I welcome you all. And especially my sincere thanks goes to Mr. Kim, who made today's event possible. Global solidarity and cooperation effort will leave another footstep for the sustainable future of the Earth and humanity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Earth is getting warmer faster than everybody expected. According to the recently released IPCC report, global warming will be accelerated even further. In a study 3 years ago, the temperature will rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2052, but now it says that it will be 20 years before 2052. As such, climate change is now progressing at an unprecedented level at a rapid pace. The future of the planet Earth is seriously threatened indeed. And after 20 years, coral reefs will disappear and Arctic glaciers will melt. And because of these heat waves, heavy rain, abnormal phenomena such as drought and forest wildfires will occur incomparably frequently. And we are already experiencing it. Well, last year in Korea, the heavy rain lasted for more than 50 days, and we had 7 typhoons pass in a row only in October. And the same was true in other countries. We have seen the heat waves continued in other regions, and in line with it, large wildfires have occurred all over the world, and in Europe, extreme flood damaged and left hundreds of casualties. We can no longer stand still. According to the World Bank's forecast, if climate change is left untouched, by 2050, 1.3 billion people will be exposed to the risk of natural disasters, and it also says that the losses will be around 158 trillion won, which is it is a twice-the annual global GDP, and we can not repeat the same mistake that can't be turned back. The past 20th century, human convenience, abundance, and industrialization, economic development were the reasons for our indiscriminate use of fossil fuels, and this needs to be ended. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the world right now is struggling with what we call COVID-19. And
국제사회 수많은 노력과
despite the efforts of the international
불구하고
community and the dedication of the healthcare workers,
1년 8개월
this
동안
infectious disease has
전 세계를
turned
몰고 가며
the world
쉽게 물러설
into a
기회가
chaos
보이지
and
않습니다.
seems that it will stay with us
여전히 세계
for
각국에서 수많은 희생을
a long
치르고
time.
있는
And
코로나19
still,
바이러스는 또한 기후위기와
all over
같은
the world,
위기라고 할 수 있습니다.
many are suffering, and
지구와
we
환경을
can say
생명체에
that
돌보지 않고
under its
지구와
root,
후손에게 무엇을 남겨야 할지
there's a
절실하게 고민하지
similar
않은
reason
우리 인류와 역사의
as we see
필연적인
the climate change.
결과일지도 모릅니다. 이제 우리는 지구와 후손의 미래를 위해
And now is
더
the
큰 책임감을
time
갖고
that we have
더
more
절박한
responsibility
노력을 시작해야 합니다.
and take
저는
more,
그 출발이 바로
make more
탈소탄과
desperate efforts. And I believe the first step is the phasing out coal and carbon neutrality. These two, indeed, will be the last hope to save the humanity and the planet Earth. And I believe we can do it, we can make it, and Chungnam will take the lead. Chungnam will join forces with the international community and cooperate with local governments around the world, and will open a new future of coal-free and carbon neutrality. Already back in 2019, for the first time in the country, Chungnam declared a climate emergency, leading to the Korean government's carbon zero plan. Also last December, by shutting down coal and thermal power plant, we have been leading the new paradigm for just energy transition. The Green Finance Pledge for phasing out coal led to nationwide participation, and over 56 institutions last year and 12 institutions were added this year. And along with this, we are also leading the cooperation with the private sector and the residents. And best practices such as the creation of the climate crisis free village have already become the new standard nationwide. And our effort did not stay in Korea. By working together with the international community, we are making this effort even further. Hosting an international conference and joining the PASCO Alliance, Under 2 Alliance are part of our efforts to cooperate with the international community. And as the governor of Chungnam, I was elected the chairman of the Asia Pacific Under 2 coalition in December last year. Chungnam will not stop here. Based on these achievements and to bear bigger fruits, we will work even harder. First, we'll generate the most upgraded strategy to realize the carbon neutral society. In order to achieve the carbon neutrality vision by 2050 strategy of Chungnam, we'll concentrate all our efforts on this task. Secondly, we'll establish the 충청남도 Carbon Neutrality Committee. With the participation of civil society's experts and businesses and academia, we'll be working to draw more specific action plans. Third, for the just transition, I'll listen to the voices of those left out through the Just Transition Fund Management Committee launched in April this year. We'll do our best to make a just transition effort so that there are no victims of good intentions. Along with this, the community, academia, and the businesses will be our partners for establishing governance and will expand our cooperative efforts. And I believe that we share the same fate. And our policies alone will not lead to the successful outcome. So in everyday life, at home and at work, we should also take small actions for the future generations and to save our dying planet. This is indeed our last chance. So we should join our forces together for the better future. Thank you very much.
네, 충남을 넘어서
Thank you very much. Beyond Chungnam, to include the Korean Peninsula and the world, this is the effort made by 충청남도 province, led by its governor, Yang Sung-jo. Thank you very much for the opening remarks. Next, we will move on to the congratulatory remarks. We have invited 9 figures at home and abroad to deliver their congratulatory through remarks one by one. First, let's meet Minister of Ministry of Environment, Minister Han Jung-hae, who sent the message through the video.
환경부 장관
Good
한정혜입니다.
morning, ladies and
오늘
gentlemen. I am Han
탈석탄 국제
Jung-hae.
컨퍼런스를 준비해 주신
For today's
양승조
National Conference on
충청남도
Carbon
지사님,
Phase-out, I'd
뜻깊은
like to
자리에
express
함께해
my
주신
deepest gratitude to
반기문
Chungnam
보다 나은 미래를
Province
위한
Governor
반기문 재단
Yang Seung-jo
이사장님,
and
그리고
to
윤순진
Honorable Bang
탄소중립위원회
Ki-moon, Chairman of the Bang Ki-moon
이소영
Foundation for
국회의원님,
Better Future,
주한
Honorable
대사님들을
Yoon
비롯한
Sun-jin,
내외기능
Chairman of Carbon
여러분께
Neutrality Committee,
감사드립니다.
and Honorable Congresswoman
지난달
Women
발표된
Lee So-young.
기후변화 범정부 간 협의체인
Last
IPCC의
year,
제6차
the
기후변화 과학 평가 보고서에
IPCC
따르면
sixth report on
지구의
climate
평균
change science
온도는 기존
released last
예측보다도
month. The
12년
average
정도
temperature of the
앞당긴
Earth is likely to
2040년에
exceed
1.5도
1.5
C를
degrees
넘을
Celsius in
가능성이 높다고
2040,
합니다.
12 years
또한
earlier
우리나라를
than the
포함한
previous
동아시아
forecast.
지역은
In
폭우의 빈도가
addition,
잦아지고 강도는
our
더욱 세질
region
가능성이
has
높다고
stronger
전망했습니다.
rainfalls and also
우리에게 시간이 많이
it
남았지
gets stronger
않다는
than ever
것이죠.
before. That means we don't have
탄소중립을
much
향한
time
전
left.
세계의 의지를 결집하고
The world's
과감한
commitment to
행동이
carbon
필요합니다.
neutrality needs to be
우리나라는 지난해
united and
10월
bold.
2050년
Since
탄소중립을
declaring
선언한
carbon
이후
neutrality in October
2030년
last year,
국가 온실가스
Korea
감축
has
목표
announced
상향
plans to
계획을
raise its 2030
발표했습니다.
national greenhouse
더불어
gas
해외
reduction
신규 석탄
target.
발전에 대한
In
문적
addition,
금융
by
지원을
stopping
중단하고
public financial
해상
support
풍력
for
등
new coal power
재생에너지
generation
전환을
overseas,
가속화하며 전기
accelerating the
수소차 보급을
conversion of
확대하는
renewable
등
energy such as
전방위적으로
offshore
탄소중립 사회
wind power
전환에
and
박차를
expanding the
가하고
supply of
있습니다.
electric and hydrogen vehicles.
또한 그간 10개월 이상 치열한 논의를
Also, after
거쳐서
more than
국회를
10
통과한
months of intense
세계
discussion, the
14번째의
world's
탄소중립
14th
기본법은
basic carbon neutrality
탄소중립에
law
대한
has passed the
비전과
National
우리나라의
Assembly.
의지를
It surely is a
확고하게
milestone
세운
to
이정표라고
firmly
할 수
establish the
있습니다.
vision of carbon neutrality and
2030년
Korea's
온실가스
will.
감축 목표의 하한선을
We have set a lower
35%로
limit of
설정한 것을
35% on
비롯해서
greenhouse gas
온실가스
reduction
감축
target in
정도를
2030,
국가재정 운영
prepared a
우선순위에
greenhouse gas
반영하는
reduction awareness
온실가스
system
감축
that
인지예산
reflects
제도를
the level
마련한
of
것,
greenhouse gas reduction
또한
in national
각종
finance
계획과 개발
priorities,
사업의 기후
established a
영향을
climate
검토하는
change impact
기후변화
assessment
영향 평가
system
제도를
that
수립한다.
examines various
또
plans and
탄소중립
development
정책과
projects
정의로운
and
전환을
introduce a climate
재정적으로
response
뒷받침하기 위한
fund
기후 대응 기금을 마련하는 등
for better
구체적인
and
정책
proactive
수단도
actions.
도입했습니다. 이제
Now,
현장에서의
we
행동이
need
필요합니다.
action on the ground.
우리는 지난 5월
In
서울
May,
녹색미래
in the
정상회의를
wake
계기로
of the Seoul
전국
Green Future Summit,
243개 지자체가
243 local
2050년
governments
탄소중립을 선언한 바
nationwide
있습니다.
declared carbon neutrality.
탄소중립 기본법과 함께
Along with the
올해 안에
Framework
수립할
Act on Carbon
2030
Neutralization
NDC를
as well
바탕으로
as the 2030
탈석탄을
NDC
포함한
to be
모든
established
행동에
within this year,
박차를 가해야
all
합니다.
actions, including coal phase out,
정부는
must be
탄소중립 이행
accelerated.
과정에서 피해가
The
커질 수 있는
government had
지역을
decided
정의로운
to
전환
consider
특별지구로
areas where
지정해
damage could be
기업들의
increased
업종
in the
전환과
process of implementing
근로자의
carbon
휴업 지원 등을
neutrality
실시하고
to be designated as a
정의로운
special
전환
zone
지원
for
센터를
just
설립해
transition
일자리
to have
전환 모델
companies
구축과
transform their
업종 전환
industries. It
컨설팅
will
지원 등
implement
지원을
unemployment
아끼지 않을
support for
것입니다.
workers, establish a just
탄소중립의
transition
시대는
support
우리
center
모두를 위한 것이기 때문입니다.
because the
다시 한번 오늘
carbon
뜻깊은 자리를
neutrality is for all
마련하시고
of us.
참석해 주신 모든
Once
분들께
again, I'd like to thank to
모쪼록 오늘의
everyone who
폭넓고
prepared a
또한
meaningful
깊은 대화가
place and attend
탄소중립
today.
사회로의
I hope
전환에
that today's
중요한
broad and
일거리
in-depth
되기를
conversation will
기대합니다.
serve as an important
고맙습니다.
foundation for transition to a carbon neutral society.
네,
Thank you very much.
환경부 장관님께 감사를 드립니다.
Thank you very much, Minister
이렇게 뜻깊은
Han.
자리에 함께 이제 참석을
For
하고
this
싶지만은
meaningful
코로나19
venue,
확산으로
there are many
여건상
people who
함께하지
want to
못한
participate
세 분이
directly together,
영상으로
but
축하의
due to the
메시지를
circumstances,
전달해
3 people
네, 바로
sent
미국
their
기후
video
특별부
images
대사이신
for the
조나단
congratulatory
퍼싱
remarks.
대사님 그리고 중국
Mr. Jonathan Persing, U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change, Mr. Lee Bing-jun, Deputy Secretary of the CPC, Joy Provincial Committee, Ms. Maria Castillo Fernandez, EU Ambassador to Korea. So let me now first invite the video of Jonathan Persing, U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change.
대사님,
Ambassador.
good morning.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Pershing, the Deputy Special Envoy for the United States working on climate change. It's a pleasure to have a chance to be here and to have a chance to talk to you about this really critical issue. I think as all the members of and participants of the conference know, climate change is an increasing threat to our global economies, to our national well-being, and in fact, to pretty much everything that we hold dear, from water to air quality to how we live our lives. Fortunately, there are real solutions that would enable us to change the outcome, things that we can do that would affect the future. that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions, that would make us much more robust and resilient in our energy systems, and still leave us with the kinds of things that we desire: access to refrigeration and food and lighting and transport. Those can be provided with alternative sources. This is a conference that's very much focused on the transition. And one of the transitions that you'll talk about, of course, is the transition away from coal and into energy alternatives. From my position here in the United States, what I can tell you is that this is a transition that is both overdue, but also one that is realizable. This is not beyond our capacity to implement. The Intergovernmental Panel.
네, thank you for your message. It's not available at the moment. 잠깐 연결 상태가 좀 좋지 않아서.
Now we have a connection issue. We are actually connected online, and there's a technical issue. It was a brief message delivered by Jonathan Persing, delivered by U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change. And let's now move on. Next is Mr. Lee Bing-jun, Deputy Secretary of the CPC Guizhou Prudential Committee. And I'm hoping that there's no connection issue. Let's have a look, please.
女士们、先生们、朋友们，首先，我谨代表贵州省人民政府向论坛开幕致以热烈祝贺。
Distinguished guests, on behalf of the Guizhou government, I'd like to congratulate you on the opening of the conference and deliver my sincere appreciation to officials of 충청남 province and all of you here for your unwavering support and cooperation for Guizhou province and its development. Under the spirit of nature and humans are one, China has long pursued harmony and coexistence between nature and humans. Since the CCP's 18th Party Congress, Chinese President Xi has reaped historic achievements in conserving ecological civilization, including establishing ecological civilization philosophy. In particular, President Xi announced a plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060 by taking a turning point from 2030. When CO2 emission reaches its peak, it suggests the role of China as part of humanity, sharing fate together. Since designated as a pilot region for China's ecological civilization, Guizhou, under the name of innovation, cooperation, green, open openness, and coexistence, has made an all-out effort to achieve the two goals of development and ecology, to bring back the rugged mountainous landscape of the nation. As a result, Guizhou achieved a gross regional production entered top 10 nationwide for 10 consecutive years, and 61.5% of the forest and 99.4% of the good quality of air in urban and rural areas. Based on this, Guizhou will be continuously committed to the modernization that pursues harmony and coexistence between humans and nature, as well as to holding Guizhou International Forum, as we've always done for the past 11 years. International cooperation on climate change will also be pursued. We look forward to your active participation as we move forward. These events under the theme of carbon neutrality, the just transition, provides us with a meaningful opportunity to discuss how to realize carbon neutrality and respond to climate crisis. I also would like to note that this year marks the 5th anniversary of the sisterhood relationship between Guizhou and 충청남 provinces. I sincerely hope that the two regions will broaden our cooperation boundaries, thereby setting a good example for friendly exchanges between the two countries. So, let me now close my remarks by wishing a successful hosting of today's event.
네, 대단히 고맙습니다. 시셰.
Thank you, Governor Lee Bing-jun. And I believe Guizhou is a province where there's a mountainous views and has a beautiful view. And I believe that if we keep our efforts together, then it will also benefit our bilateral relations as well. The next is the Maria Castillo, EU Ambassador to Korea. Let's watch it together.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
It is with real great pleasure to share with you some congratulatory remarks on behalf of the European Union. And a big thanks to Governor Yang of Changnam Province for inviting me to this international conference on coal phase-out and proactive response, with whom we have been participated since 2019. This year's conference theme, carbon neutrality and just transition, is not only very timely, but extremely relevant, especially at a moment where we are all, Europe and Korea, gearing up our efforts in order to have a successful UN climate conference, COP26 in November in Glasgow. This summer, just right now, we are experiencing the effects of climate change. We have seen hundreds of casualties with those devastating floods in Europe and in China. We have seen scorching heat in the US, in Canada, in Korea, and now in Europe. We can't afford the cost of inaction. That is really paramount. In Europe, we have put on the table very ambitious targets. A Green Deal, but also the net zero 2050 target of carbon neutrality, and what is more, an enormous package, very ambitious, because we need to put those ambitions now into action. I know Korea has done the same. 2050 neutrality goals, the Korean deal mirrors what we are doing in Europe. We are all seeking transitions which are green and digital, but we need to work together. This transition also cannot be successful if we leave someone behind. Therefore, we need to ensure that no person, no community, no region, no worker, no sector is left behind. In Europe, we have come with the Just Transition Mechanism, a package of 65 to 75 billion euro over 7 years, from 2021 to 2027, to support the most affected regions and the most affected communities and sectors that will have it much more difficult to make this transition into green energy and climate-related industries. Korea is also discussing a just transition mechanism. I was not long ago in the National Assembly sharing the experience of Europe in this case. But I know that Jungnam Province is a key region for this transition to climate neutrality. It is home to half of the country's coal fleet, and therefore I really welcome your commitment to become net zero in 2050 and all the different initiatives that you are going to put on the table, including the depository divestment movement, which is very important, and your long-term strategy for 2050. We have been closely cooperating together, I'm very proud of this, on climate projects to support Chungnam's clean and just transition and to share our knowledge and experience. I hope we will continue to do so. This event will perhaps bring new ideas and new initiatives, and we can together explore better solutions. This is not an easy, it's an enormous transformation of all our societies, of all our economies, and we all need to do it together. So I'm very happy to be here, even if it's just on a congratulatory way. And I hope we can continue this discussion soon and visit your province. Thank you so much. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Thank you for your congratulatory speech. 미스 페르난데즈 주한 EU 대사님께서
Thank you very
이렇게
much for the
메시지를
congratulatory
전해주셨습니다. 참
remarks,
고맙습니다.
which is very thankful
감사드리고요.
and very grateful.
이번에는
Now,
국회에서
Next is the Congresswoman Lee So-young, who sent us her congratulatory remarks. Let's look at it.
안녕하세요.
Good morning. I am the Daminju Party Congresswoman
충남도
Lee So-young.
태국국제
The
컨퍼런스가
International
올해로
Conference
벌써
on
5주년이
Coal Phase Out
됐는데요.
has already marked its
저는
5th anniversary.
2017년부터
As a
하루도
person
빠지지
who has
않고
attended the
충남
conference
탈석탄 컨퍼런스에
since
참석했던
충청남도 province
사람 중
first
한
held
명입니다.
its phase out conference in 2017.
직접 가서 참석하고
Whenever I come
싶었는데
here, I feel like I'm
정기
standing
국회
at the side of the
일정이
history of the
겹치면서
Korea
가보지
coal
못해서
phase out in the
너무너무
making. I'm very sorry for not making this time today
작년도
because of
탈석탄
the
컨퍼런스
conflicting schedule.
이후에 대한민국의 가장 큰 변화라고
If I had to
하면
choose one of the
우리가
biggest changes
2050년
in Korea since
탄소중립
last year's
선언에
coal phase out
동참하게
conference,
됐다는
it'd be carbon
일일
neutrality.
것입니다. 그 이후에
Since the president first declared the 2050 carbon neutrality in October last year, all 243 local governments declared carbon neutrality in May this year. And the basic carbon neutrality law I proposed a week ago was finally passed the National Assembly.
사회의 아젠다가 되고 많은 성과들을 내고 있는데
Now we are having this kind of fruitful result. And I don't think it's too much to express that 충청남도 province has built the foundation of our country's carbon neutrality. Chungnam province became the first region in Asia, and more than other central government or other local government is challenging to achieve carbon neutrality. To name a few of the achievements of Chungnam province, it is Chungnam province to be the first region in Asia to join the PPCA and the East Asian local government to declare a climate emergency. In addition, the National Assembly followed the footsteps of the Chungnam province to pass the resolution. And today's conference can be something that is in line with that effort. The company withdrew its plan to build Dangjin Eco Power, new coal power plant, and not only that, we are building the clean renewable energy power plant. So we have suspended the life expansion project of the old coal-powered power plant, which changed the direction for the future and meeting the new future. Not only that, one of the promise of the Governor Yang, we have closed Boryang Thermal Power Plant Unit 1 and 2 early in December last year. That means Chungnam province has shown action taken for change by making plans and practicing them accordingly. It's not just promising to pass coal only in words. I believe that Governor Yang Sung-jo was elected and as a co-chairman of the Asia Pacific region. So this citizen-oriented RE100 declaration can be one of the examples of how 충청남도 is leading the way. Up until now, it was the government-led action, but now it is led by citizens, which is started by the 충청남도 province. And these actions, these measures, is not only good for the earth, is not only good for other people, it is also profitable for 충청남도 province. 충청남도 is with lots of manufacturing industry sector, automobiles and others together. These kind of industries, which will be affected by the direction of the globe, including the US and others. That means 충청남도 province with this kind of direction will be helpful in responding to such changes in the future. For the economy, for the livelihood of the citizens and its protection, and to share the burden of the pains to go to the further direction. That should be the way the 충청남도 province will take in the future. And I heard that the 충청남도 province will have its neutrality vault to be installed within the local government, which will be something that leads the world and other local governments by examples. Up until now, the 충청남도 province and the Governor Yang have shown us enormous leadership which brings lots of fruitful results, which has been really amazing. And as a congresswoman, I'm very grateful for seeing that. And thank you very much for your way. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Lee So-young. She amazingly summarized everything that 충청남도 province has been doing so far in the sector of the environment. That 충청남도 province is taking more actions than other local government and even central government. Thank you very much. That fruitful summary and meaningful congratulatory remarks delivered to us.
매우 고맙게도 두 분의 대사님께서 함께 하고 계십니다. 두 분의 대사님의
Next, let us now hear from ambassadors. First, Honorable Simon Smith, British Ambassador to Korea, will deliver a congratulatory remarks. Ambassador Simon Smith has served as ambassador to Ukraine and Austria and has served as an ambassador to the United Nations and representative to the UK at the IAEA in Vienna.
Good morning.
Please welcome Governor Yang Seung-jin and Chief Director Kim. A very good morning to you all. I'm Simon Smith, British Ambassador to Korea. On the leadership of Governor Yang, Chungnam has been playing a pioneering role in the energy transition, and it is my great honor to have this opportunity to deliver this congratulatory remark.
Distinguished participants, in less than 2 months, world leaders, including, we hope, President Moon, will gather in Glasgow at COP26 for a truly decisive climate summit. As scientists have now made absolutely clear, we can no longer delay action. The most recent report by the IPCC showed that the world has already seen 1.1 degrees Celsius of warming based on human activity in the last 150 years. And as the IPCC report emphasizes, if we do not see real progress this decade, we can expect to exceed 1.5 degrees of warming within the next 20 years, thus making it impossible to achieve the ambitions set out in the Paris Agreement to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And if we fail to take effective action this decade, we will be proceeding on a path which scientists and economists tell us will inflict serious damage on our planet's ecosystems, land use models, cities, economies, and ultimately the livelihoods of all of us. In the last 12 months, we've seen evidence that countries are taking the assertive action that we're told is required of us. The United Kingdom's commitment to reduce emissions by 68% by 2030 has helped to generate a momentum in which we've seen announcements by the US to reduce emissions by 50 to 52% by 2030, the European Union by 55%, and Japan by 46%. In Korea, we applaud the very recent passage of legislation which locks in Korea's commitment to achieve 2050 net zero and puts that on the statute book. We must acknowledge the legislated commitment, including within this law, to reduce emissions by, I quote, at least 35%. At the same time, we are urging the Korean government, who are currently considering the NDC to be announced at Glasgow, to listen to the recommendations of scientists who've made clear that all developed nations must halve their emissions by 2030 in order to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius within reach. So I hope that the reference to at least 35% can be enhanced so that it comes out much closer to 50%. And I hope a bold and ambitious commitment at or around 50% will demonstrate without any element of uncertainty that Korea is bringing global leadership to averting the most critical crisis of our times. On behalf of the PPCA co-chairs, the United Kingdom and Canada, and on behalf of the COP26 presidency, it's my great pleasure to applaud the leadership of Cheongnam, Seoul, Gyeonggi, Incheon, Jeju, Daegu, Gangwon, and Jeonnam in tackling the climate crisis. Together as PPCA members representing more than 66% of Korean citizens and over 80% of installed coal capacity, these provinces and cities have signaled their desire for Korea to take a radical departure from the use of thermal coal power. And since Cheongnam joined the PPCA in 2018 as the alliance's first Asian member, the province has acted to reduce emissions, improve air quality, and protect the health of its citizens by bringing forward the closure of 14 coal units to 2026. And in addition, Cheongnam is ensuring a just transition, supporting affected workers and the wider community, and playing its full part in Korea's 2050 net zero.
그리고 정의로운 전환을 하는 것도 잊지 않고 있습니다. 2050년 탄소중립위원회에서는 우선 제로 시나리오를 발행한 바 있습니다. 뿐만 아니라 이를 통해서 화석 연료를 사용하지 않는 정의로운 출발을, 대담한 출발을 함으로써 앞으로 가스나 여러 가지 재생 가능한 에너지를 이용함으로써 2050년의 목표를 달성하고자 하고 있습니다. 이러한 과정에서 한국 정부가 선도적인 역할을 맡아 영국과 다른 14개의 국가와 함께 합류하여 탈석탄 동맹으로서 탈석탄을 위한 동맹의 활동을 이어나가는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 지금 뒤편에 보이는 것은 탈석탄 동맹 가입 및 친환경 에너지 전환 대정부 건의문입니다. 밑에 보시면 인천에서부터 강원도, 충청남도, 전라남도까지 모든 도지사님들께서 함께 서명을 하셨습니다. 이는 석탄의 사용을 더 이상 멈추겠다라는
who are participating in this conference today have shown this commitment to bold visions and quick action, this commitment to, as the conference title says, the commitment to 기후위기 선제대응, to preemptive, proactive action. It's that commitment that we need to see sustained by all nations coming to COP26 in November and beyond, so that we can really nail this down, so that we can assure that the goal of stopping the rise in global temperatures at 1.5 Celsius is kept within reach, so that we can show that by the middle of the 21st century we have stopped the 20th century processes that have put our planet in such acute danger, and that we've achieved a fundamental change in the way in which we consume our planet's resources, sustaining healthy and successful livelihoods for people in countries right across the world, now and in future. So, distinguished participants, many of you here have worked immensely hard to keep that vision of a successful, equitable energy transition within reach. Let's keep working. Thank you.
대단히 고맙습니다. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
네, 주한 영국 대사이신 사이먼 스미스 대사님께서
Thank you very much for the UK Ambassador to Korea, Mr. Simon Smith, making emphasis on the importance of the participation of all levels. Thank you very much for your speech. Next, we will move to the Danish Ambassador to Korea, Honorable Einar Jensen, for his congratulatory speech. Please come to the podium. Please come to the podium. Thank you very much. The Einar Jensen ambassador has worked for about 13 years in the Environmental Security Agency and the Environmental Energy Department in Denmark. Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning.
I'm Einar Jensen, and I've been the Danish ambassador to Korea for the past 2 years. Let me start by extending a warm congratulations to 충청남도 for hosting this important conference, and also to you, Governor, for doing a great job. It takes political courage to accelerate the green energy transition. With the newest IPCC report, released just last month, we have received the starkest warning to date. July was the warmest month ever, and for the first time, rain, not snow, was seen on Greenland's highest point. We have never experienced that before. The good news is that we can still put an end to the climate crisis. It is both technically feasible, economically efficient, and beneficial for the wider environmental agenda. But it requires bold action from all of us. The coal phase-out is one of the most important steps. So as Ambassador of Denmark, I will come here to thank you for your efforts and your plans for the future. Years back, Denmark was also struggling as the country was entirely dependent on fossil fuel, oil and coal. Denmark has committed now to 70% emission reduction by 2030, so we are in the lead on that one. And today, more than 30% of the Danish energy need comes from renewable energy. We have specific plans to reach 50% by 2030, and by 2050, if not before, Denmark will be 100% climate neutral. Already today, 70% of our electricity comes from renewable sources, most of it from offshore wind. Also, it's worth to mention that our national efforts towards net zero have been influenced and motivated by our many progressive and forward-looking cities in Denmark, like in Korea. The Danish capital, Copenhagen, aims to be the world's first carbon-neutral capital city by 2025, just 4 years from now. When looking back, long-term planning, framework legislation and broad political agreements was the key components of the Danish green transition. Since the 17th, Denmark has had a tradition of enacting agreements with broad political support on energy and environmental policy issues. 40 years back, the driving force was not just to address climate change, it was also to ensure cleaner air to the people, energy interdependency from other countries, and foster domestic job creation. Today we know that 1 gigawatt of offshore wind creates 14,600 jobs. So you can imagine what the plans for Korea entails of jobs. The 12 gigawatt is more than 150,000 jobs. Although long-term planning, framework legislation and broadly accepted political agreements are central elements of the global green transition, they will not do the job alone. Fulfilling the 2050 vision will require a genuine paradigm shift in Danish energy policy in the coming years. No single technology or sector can achieve this transition alone. There are many parts leading to a green, low-carbon economy, such as focusing on producing, consuming, managing sustainable energy, ensuring water security, moving towards a circular economy, and creating smart, green, and livable cities are also a critical factor. One of examples of this is a collaboration between the water and electricity sector, where sludge from wastewater treatment plants is used to produce green energy in biogas plants. In Denmark, we see the green transition as an investment in the future economy, growth, market opportunity, and not least job creation. In fact, in 2017, the Danish green economy contributed to more than 76,000 jobs, full-time jobs, 8.2 billion euro for our GDP, and 10.8 billion euro to exports. It accounts for about 12-13% of our export currently, so it's a sector that is very useful and important for us. Green business is good business. The Danish experience over the past decades is evidence that investing in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and resources optimization makes good economic sense. Electricity harnessed from renewable energy sources such as wind and solar is one of the cheapest alternatives in the market. In fact, onshore wind power is the cheapest energy source in Denmark. Investing in water infrastructure leads to lower maintenance, energy and treatment costs. In a nutshell, short payback times and green solutions make it highly attractive and cost-effective for cities and industries to make the necessary investments. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Cheongnam for the good cooperation during the P4G summit on smart green schools. The embassies truly appreciate the fact that Cheongnam has been an excellent partner on smart green schools conceptualization. We together have successfully visualized how to integrate energy savings, circular technologies from Denmark at the newly renovated Environmental Education Center in Cheongnam. The embassy is looking forward to following your great work in the years to come and to continue the strong collaboration with Cheongnam on green transition and net zero. In particular, I believe there is great scope for offshore wind and biogas in your province, so I'll be very happy to continue collaboration on that and bring developments and partners here. Once again, I would like to congratulate you on the conference. I'm sure it will be a very successful conference. 감사합니다.
감사합니다, 대사님. Thank you for congratulating speech. 아이나 옌센 주한 덴마크 대사님께서 지시를 해주셨습니다.
Mr. Einar Jensen, ambassador to Korea, made a great congratulatory remarks. Next is the Mr. Kim Myung-sun, chairman of the 충청남도 Council. Chairman Kim Myung-sun has worked for the Dangjin Eco Power for the transition to the renewable energy source.
여러분 반갑습니다. 충청남도의 의장 김명선.
Good morning. My name is Kim Myung-sun,
지구 온난화와 감염병으로
the chairman of the 충청남도 Council. At a time when the world is suffering from global warming and infectious diseases, it is very opportune occasion to talk about and to hold the 2021 International Conference on Coal Phase Out in response to climate change. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude and congratulation to Mr. Kim, the head of the CIIUC, and the Governor Yang for your concerted efforts. In addition, for this meaningful event, the UK Ambassador to Korea and Danish Ambassador to Korea and Chairman Yoon Soon-jin and Superintendent of the 충청남도 Province and the Mayor of Dangjin and the head of Yesan area and other distinguished guests, thank you for your participation and attending today's event. Today, I'd like to start my remarks by talking about the IPCC. The IPCC warned that if global temperatures rise more than 1.5 degrees against pre-industrialization level, rising sea levels and abnormal weather conditions will put tons of human lives in great danger. And the sixth report says that the time of rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius is just 10 years away. The Earth is already experiencing facing unprecedented climate crisis disasters such as heat waves, floods, and forest fires. This year alone, Canada and the US have suffered a lot of casualties for the heat wave. Germany and China have been flooded. Siberia, Turkey, and Greece have been hit by wildfires. As such, global warming has already reached a critical point, and if carbon emissions continue to rise, we will face more and more serious weather disasters. Perhaps now is the last chance to correct climate change for the sake of peace and common prosperity of mankind. 충청남도 is pushing ahead of carbon neutrality and coal phase out to cope with the climate crisis. This is crucial for all the global society, but wherever you are and anywhere you are in, no one should not be left out alone. So this conference is a venue to talk about the concrete ways to have the just transition, and also restructuring the industries and industrial sectors in the region. We can develop the ways to have coal prosperity in the way of coal phase out. Once again, congratulations on hosting the 2021 International Conference on Coal Phase Out and Proactive Response to Climate Change. I bid your happiness and well-being in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. and Honorable Kim. Next is the Superintendent of the Education Office in 충청남도 Council, Mr. Kim Myung-sun. He's making a very enjoyable Kim Ji-chul, the Superintendent of the Education of 충청남도 Province, in making the safe and healthy and enjoyable school situation all the time. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Kim Ji-chul, the Superintendent of Korea at 충청남도 Province. It'll be really good. So I am superintendent. It is the right naming and the title of what I'm doing here, because it's not an elected one. It is an appointed. It is elected one, not an appointed one. So in the midst of the climate crisis and disaster situation, under the theme of the carbon neutrality and just transition, we're having today's conference. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to Governor Yang and Mr. Kim of the CIIUC for your concerted effort. Last year, we have 54 days long rainy season. And this year, the Western Europe, 189 people died of the huge flood. And also in the western part of the U.S., centering on the California, there have been wildfires, one of which is still ongoing. And this is about 10 times in size of the Yeouido area in Korea. That wildfire has been on for 6 months, and India has about 1 month long floods, and China has 2 weeks long floods, which made about thousands of people losing their house. Due to the night heat wave, which cannot go through up of the air. It comes back to the ground area, which make really hot night during the summer, which has been repeated for a long time in Korea. Such climate crisis-related situations taking place around the world, the scientists are concerning about. It's not the climate change anymore. It is climate crisis now, because time is really serious having this kind of disasters. Of course, we have to use the global warming all the time, but still, rather than climate change, we have to use climate crisis. Because for specific reasons, for each parties in some of the nations, they keep on using climate change, some others using climate crisis, by using this as their political argument. But this is wrong. We have to use climate crisis as a right word, because we are at the last corner to bring back the clean past again. So the coal phase out and carbon neutrality is something that we have to make successful now. But this cannot be made by the help and the work of one nation alone. And in terms of the capability of each country's power, it is really important to have right transition. It is repeated over and over again. But under this climate crisis situation, we have to think about how we can live in the future. And then it is not only the question for just 충청남도 province. It should be something that we have to consider together when we are working together with the international community. Without the international solidarity, we cannot make it work. That should be reconfirmed here in this conference. Now, with this conference, yes, it is really meaningful and important, but have to develop concrete measures and have to take actions. The carbon neutrality and climate crisis issue is something that we have to deal with immediately, something that we have to deal with right away. Because we don't have second planet, we don't have second Earth. The old and nice words can be paraphrased and repeated here, but rather than that, here in my house, here in 충청남도 province, in UK, in China, in Denmark, and in US, what we should do in a concrete measure. We have to think about those concrete measures together and have to list up all the items that we can work together one by one. To this end, our children, for their right understanding and recognition about the climate crisis, and to talk about how to overcome this climate crisis, we are teaching them with the right choice, we can make it work. The whole 750 schools in 충청남도 province and all the relevant agencies in the education office, we are implementing 365 program. That is 365 days a year, but it means 3 things a day and 6 days a week and 5 things as a whole as a community. We have to carry out one by one to make this work. And also they make a record using the applications. They also can support environment entities and also can help those marginalized. We have completed the process for the implementation, and now we will do the execution from next week with our students. And also Google, Apple, and other technological support will be made by the end of September with the help of those companies. And also our education agency is making the civil committee for the school ecology with the environment groups and with other civil society. We can grow our children further together with the help of this civil society and environment groups. Through this conference, this is repeated every year, but we can go further in improvement and enhancement, and can think about what we can do in our daily lives in 충청남도 area and other areas as well. 충청남도 can take a lead, but other local government in 전라북도 and 전라남도 or Jeju Island can be part of that action together. By doing so, we can spread these actions to Europe, to US, and to other continents. then we can live together in this planet together.
멸종, 6 degrees centigrade, 6도의 멸종,
6
the
degree
great extinction.
great extinction.
책을 보면
There's a book that is called 6 degrees Celsius Great Extinction. When we have more than 3 degrees Celsius rise in the temperature, then sea level will be extremely rising. Then all the island or the offshore living people will lose their home. And in the 6 degrees Celsius rise, then all the species of the planet will come to follow the footsteps of the dinosaurs. To stop that great extinction, we have to gather our commitment, our effort, starting with today's conference. With this good conference, meaningful conference, I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to all the distinguished guests for your participation. And up until now, by visiting all the cities or counties in 충청남도 province, we have worked and talked about the sustainable ways to have coal phase out and carbon neutrality with all the MOUs, and at the same time signing the resolution to make sure there are measures to be taken in practice. 충청남도 province is taking the lead, but following that, the Education Office of 충청남도 will follow the step of the 충청남도 province. With a cleaner air, with cleaner sky, we can enjoy the cleaner air and cleaner sky for about 365 days a year. That can be made for our future generations, the children's and our students. They should enjoy the same cleaner air and sky with our help. 충청남도 can take the lead. Thank you very much.
김지철 충청남도 교육감님의
Thank you very much, Superintendent Kim.
앞으로 지금 어떤 시간이 남았는지 궁금하실 겁니다.
Maybe you are wondering what we are going to have for the rest of the conference. We are finishing our congratulatory remarks. We will have a policy representation of Governor Yang, and also we'll have the vision presentation. And we'll also have 2 students to present their energy transition project, after which we will have RE 100 participation declaration to be repeated and voiced together with our own. Next, let us invite Governor Yang once again to present you the Chungnam Type 2050 Carbon Neutrality Vision and Strategy. Please welcome him with a big hand. This is time to share the policy presentation of Governor Yang, how Chungcheongnam-do Province is preparing for the future for carbon neutrality.
예, 여러분 대단히 반갑습니다.
Good morning once again. Thank you for being with us until the medium and latter part of today's conference. Today, I'm very happy to announce strategic plan for the carbon neutrality vision by 2050 of Chungnam for the 2021 International Conference on Carbon Phase Out and Carbon Neutrality Climate Crisis. As you all know, Chungcheongnam-do is an area where greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase as coal-fired power plants are concentrated nationwide and are based on the high carbon manufacturing industry. To achieve carbon neutrality, technology development and support are needed, along with active transition to renewable energy in energy and industry sector. However, due to increased production cost and economic cost, steps have been slow toward carbon neutrality. Despite these difficult conditions, in line with the global movement of carbon neutrality, the Korean government announced its 2050 carbon neutrality strategy in December last year and launched a carbon neutrality committee in May this year. Therefore, Chungcheongnam-do Province intends to announce the Chungnam Type 2050 carbon neutrality vision and strategy today to open the door to the area of local government carbon neutrality. Under the vision of Green Chungnam, Korea's leading carbon neutrality, we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% compared to 2018 by 2035. Based on 충청남도's capability and opportunity, we will establish an innovative ecosystem for green society and achieve its Green Chungnam vision by pursuing the following four strategies. First, for clean transition, we will shut down 14 units of coal-fired power plants and then the rest of the plants by 2050. Instead, we will create renewable energy integration complexes such as solar and marine wind power, expand finances, and increase the independence rate of renewable energy by more than 40% by 2040. Second, in order for bold innovation to take place in the industrial sector, we will build the RE100 Innovation Belt by 2030. And for the advanced, eco-friendly industrial complex, we will create a smart green industrial complex. In order to occupy 30% of the domestic hydrogen supply by 2040, we will create a byproduct hydrogen and extraction production base. In addition, throughout the entire process of demonstrating hydrogen research, storing production, transporting, and utilizing hydrogen, we will establish an ecosystem to create a hydrogen city and installing more than 150 hydrogen chargers to contribute to the spread of green mobility. Third, in order to create a participatory society, the use of low-carbon fertilizers in the agricultural, livestock, and fishery sectors, Chungnam will be expanded, and along with the energy of livestock manure, the conversion of the electricity and hydrogen in fishing boat fuel is achieved. In order to strengthen carbon absorption as well as reduce carbon emissions, we will continue to study marine resources to create the largest carbon absorption source in Korea. For future generation, to promote carbon-neutral mandatory education, to expand interest in responding to the climate crisis and political participation, we will collaborate with the Office of Education. Fourth, in order to establish a leading foundation for carbon neutrality, we will spread the coal phase-out and carbon neutrality vote introduced for the first time in our province to local government education offices and public institutions nationwide. Starting with 56 institutions nationwide participating in 2020, the coal phase-out and carbon neutrality SAFE currently has 69 institutions together, with an annual fiscal size of 231.965 trillion won. Based on these visible achievements, 충청남도 province will expand the applicable institutions of coal phase-out and carbon neutrality vote nationwide. In addition, to strengthen climate change impact assessment and greenhouse gas reduction, the carbon recognition budget system will be introduced by 2024, and carbon neutrality signals in the public sector will be strengthened in order to induce investment in coal phase-out. To achieve the vision of Green Chungnam, leading Korea's carbon neutrality, to form a clean transition, bold innovation, particularly a participatory society and leading foundation, 충청남도 province will spare no administrative and financial support. As for the state and central government, in order to open a new horizon for coal phase-out and carbon neutrality, we ask for your policy consideration and support to quickly adopt innovative energy conversion technical support in the industrial sector. We hope that today's effort and passion for 2050 carbon neutrality in Chungnam province will be an opportunity to spread the country. Chungnam province is committed to achieving out goals widely stated today. Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much for Governor Yang. He presented 2050 Chungnam type vision and strategy for coal phase-out and carbon neutrality.
달성 성과에
We
효과가
will
매우
look
클
forward to
거라고
seeing Chungnam
믿습니다.
taking the lead in coal phase
계속해서
out and carbon
이번에는
neutrality.
탄소중립위원회 윤순진 위원장께서 함께 말씀을 주시겠는데요.
Next
탄소중립
is Chairperson Yoon Sun-jin of the Presidential Committee on Carbon Neutrality. And she'll be delivering a special remark on carbon neutrality now and future. Yoon Sun-jin, please welcome her with a big hand. Welcome.
네, 환경지역을 위해서 많은 노력을 해오신 분입니다.
She's been working very hard
미래를 위한 한 걸음 2050 탄소 중립이라는 그 제목을 함께
realization of carbon neutrality. The remark has a title of A Step Toward the Future, 2050 Carbon Neutrality. I actually want to control slides, but then, I'll ask you to. Should I be wearing mask? Hello to you all. I'm Yoon Sun-jin. I'm the chairperson of Presidential Committee on Carbon Neutrality. The topic today is actually, in Chungnam. The Chungnam has joined the PPCA for the first time in Korea, and right here at this conference last year, there was also the Green Finance Pledge that was made. So Chungnam is indeed leading the way towards phasing out coal, and especially if you think about it, the half of the coal-fired power plants are located in this region. So that is why I believe Chungnam's role will be an exemplary one for realizing the just transition. So we have high hopes. So what I prepared today is actually very basic things. So I think the first part, I'm going to pass it fast. And the committee that I belong to, 2050 carbon neutrality scenario or 2030 NDC, I believe you are all interested in this. In fact, 2050 carbon neutrality scenario has already announced, and 2030 NDC is still under discussion. So details will not be covered today in my presentation, but let me begin. As you may know, as IPCC has emphasized in its report, the sixth report, when it comes to climate change, it is indeed happening, and it is happening by humanity. So there's a clear evidence now that climate change is man-made. So I am trying to control the slides. So if you can see the slide, you see that the surface of glacier in Greenland melts, and the dogs, they are supposed to actually run on the glaciers, but they are sledding on the water. I saw in a documentary, all over the world, we see that the global warming is happening. I saw this burning earth in the poster for today's conference. Well, it's already mentioned today, the wildfire in California or in Australia, there was a massive scale wildfire. And recently, in Siberia even, we see the temperatures being rising, and in Korea also, in Andong or in other regions, we have also seen the wildfire. So in this dry condition, if the temperature goes up, then it will be resulted in wildfire. So if you think about wildfire, if you think about it happening in other regions, you can see that there's much CO2 emitted by wildfire, and it will indeed impact the environment and climate. And as mentioned, this is not working properly, but anyways, it is man-made mostly, and especially the CO2 emitted by the fossil fuels is a lot. So what we need to aim for is to reduce this fossil fuel-fired carbon emissions. But this alone will not solve the problem. This is indeed a serious part of it. If you think about it, there are CO2 emissions coming from livestock, waste, and methanes. These are also huge contributors. So this can not only be solved by the technological application, but can be solved by changes of our diet, changes of our livelihood. And I think we don't even have to touch on all of these extreme weather events. So as I just told you, the current generation is experiencing the climate change the first time, and actually we are the generation that needs to control these impacts and repercussions of climate change. So we do have this responsibility and duty for controlling and preventing this issue. So if you think about it, mentioned about this wildfire and also floods, but before, when we only talked about this discriminate impact, and I think this still holds true. When climate change occurs, then it doesn't matter where you belong, which occupation you have. According to this, the impacts vary, but nevertheless, these days what I witness is that despite this discriminate impact, actually everybody can be under threat, especially when it comes to wildfire or the floods. I've actually once asked the German ambassador to Korea about the recent flood happened in Germany, and I asked which region it was, if the region was for the poor people or the rich people, but he said that it was indeed a region where there's a lot of middle-class people. So the same goes for the wildfire. If there's a massive scale wildfire occurs, then even those who have will not be free from the impacts of the wildfire. So indeed, these impacts touch everyone regardless of class. Okay. There are some technical issues. So it's been said often, and we no longer talk about this 2 degrees goal. We now talk about 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. And of course, it is not a safe target. As you can see, in case of coral reef, we are saying that 70 to 90% of the coral reefs will go extinct. And also, if you think about the sea level rise, it will be a problem, and it will also mean that this movement of ocean currents will be delayed and will cause bigger problems. And I talked to you about this 1.5 degrees rise, and the time will be not 2052 but 2040, and this was the main point and the biggest warning by IPCC. When it comes to carbon neutrality, if you just think about it, I am actually having this trouble controlling my controller. So by 2050, we need to reach this carbon neutrality. This is IPCC's recommendation. And if you think about what carbon neutrality is about, that is the emitted CO2, that would include greenhouse gases as well. It will no longer increase, so the net emission will be zero. So the emissions and absorption, this is not the end of the understanding. This actually required a huge cost. So what we have to do is, unless we reduce the emissions to the maximum level, then this target will not be achievable. So as I've mentioned, that is why we need to also change our lifestyle. And when it comes to absorption, of course, we can approach this with the natural-based solutions, but Now we talk about CCUS. This is a technology that is for carbon capture and carbon storage. But as for CCSU, it still embodies the huge uncertainty scientifically, and we are not certain about its economic impact. So the application of CCUS, it shouldn't take a huge part of the effort, but if we keep continuing with the current level of emissions, this also will be not will be easy. So even if we apply CCUS, we do have the limited space for the storage of carbon. So this technology will still be at the transitional point, and that is why it's most important to reduce the amount of the emitted CO2. It was actually 1980 when we started the climate change discussions, and NASA's Goddard Institute had Professor James, and at the US Parliament, he sent this warning. Of course, before scientists talked about this potential danger, but it was 1992. This climate agreement was settled. Then the Kyoto Agreement came, and in 2015, the most famous Paris Agreement was settled. It was a long time, 30 years of time. We spent the time discussing and finding solutions, but as Mr. Kim Ji-chul, Chunhyang Governor of Education, mentioned, we just started to take actions when he actually started to feel the urgency. So I think this is very unfortunate, but we need to do everything we can. So 2021, which is now, we need, and we are indeed aware of the fact that the climate crisis is indeed a real one, and
the reason why we are having this climate crisis is because we didn't pay the price of what we have done, but we are not accepting the fact. Still, we are talking about we do not understand how serious it is. Yes, we do know that this is serious, but to resolve this, to what extent I should do, to what extent I have to pay the price, to what extent we have to take serious measures, and directly, personally, what we have to do. Still, we have to have many discussions and the realizations about the current situation. We've talked about this for about 30 years in the past, and now 30 years are being left ahead of us. This is really limited time, but we have to do our best. And around the world, there are many countries announcing the carbon neutrality. As you can see here, up until now, about 137 countries announced carbon neutrality. And until last month, until last year, after their announcement based on the Paris Accord, which was not enough, so they modified and enhanced their targets. With the Climate Summit, it is encouraged and urged for nations to enhance their targets for climate crisis response. And the COP26 that will be held this year, our government also is made up its mind to enhance its target. Then what is the imminent challenge that before us? The countries belonging to the Appendix 1, especially the OECD countries, they have strived their effort since 1990 to work on the climate change issue. So up until now, the UK have made about 42% of the reduction, EU 24%, US 4%, and Japan about 2%. How about the South Korea? The South Korea has increased its greenhouse gas emission by 149%. We have very compact and fast development for the past 30 years. With this rapid development of the economy, the greenhouse gas emission has radically increased. Based on this situation, together with this, the greenhouse gas emission has radically increased. As you can see in the graph, from around 3.3 billion, it has increased to 0.7 billion ton. With this situation, we have to go back to the carbon neutrality. That means we have to radically decrease the carbon emission. This is the imminent challenge before us that we have to resolve. With this, with our 2030 target, how we can enhance our target by 2030, that is a challenge and a task that we have to think about. As you can see here, the energy sector accounts for about 86 or 87% of the whole emission. And think about the emission source. The industrial part is emitting the largest part. The manufacturing sector is having the highest concentration in terms of the industrial mix. So compared to other countries, it is not easy for Korea to have a radical step to reduce the emission level. But under the circumstances, this is not something that we can avoid. We can just look the other way. The reason why we are having this consumption pattern, it is started from 1950s, where the energy consumption has radically increased around the world. And these days, the renewable energy consumption has increased a lot, but maintaining this total energy consumption level, we cannot solve this issue. So we have to reduce energy consumption. While doing so, we have to go beyond the fossil fuel or coals that we have been using so far. Here, I also inserted additional information about the energy sources and each source, how we can use it. This shows that we only use really short amount of history to use this kind of energy sources compared to the long history that we have. So that means we can have radical changes if we have to and we want to. This is not something that is impossible. So here, this is the source that energies that we are having. And now we have to have the decentralization. There also have challenges. Up until now, we have nuclear reactors or coal-fired power plants. Those development installations, the areas located with these installations were really minimal and small. Then conflicts about whether we have this installation, the conflict was really small. But when we come to the renewable energy sources, it can go to anywhere with wind, with land, or seashores. Then there are many people having the conflict of interest or negative understanding about having this kind of power plant, renewable power plants. Then we have really serious conflicts about hosting or installing this power plant. For solving this issue, the local government efforts is really important because they have the right to permit installation of this power plant, and they also are the one who solve the complaints made by the civil society, especially the local government is really important. So this is the one that we have to go forward. I will fast forward to the latter part of the presentation slides. Among the OECD member countries, we have the lowest percentage of the renewable energy source used. We have to overcome this situation. That is a task before us. Around the world, the renewable energy source is rapidly increasing. As you can see on the right side of the slide, from 2010, the additional renewable energy sources installed was more or less 40%. But after 10 years, in 2020, 83% of the power plant installed newly are renewable energy sources. And the investment about the renewable energy sources is more than 70% of whole investment in the energy sector. As you can see in the graph, the investment for the renewable energy sources, there are fluctuations, but you can see the rapid increase in investment. And also the solar power investment is rapidly increasing among others. And by 2016, since 2016, we have rapid increase that's suppressing the wind power by the solar power. That is due to the equitable price for development. When we take all that into account for the investment that we have to put in, the price that we need to pay in the investment is reduced. For the solar power, it is cut by 85%, and the wind power, it is cut by 50%. But then what is the problem? In Korea, for equitable development for renewable energy source, this is not a model that is fitted for our situation. We have to challenge this as well. The installation and the land or the places that we can host this installation, the price we need to pay is really high. And for the transition, the great transition to a new society, that is being talked as a green reality, but this is not something that we can be frightened with. This should be responded with positive opportunity, not a green future. It is the source of the job creation in the future. This is an opportunity that we can lose the burden of the nature and can do further. That is a renewable energy sector. Of course, we also have to think about those jobs that should disappear due to such a transition, the job sectors and job types, how to solve the issue with those kind of area who lose lots of jobs due to such transition, but we can wisely deal with this issue. The Chungnam province, while removing the coal in this area, if we can make a harmonizing program to have wise coal phase out, while doing so have new job creation in the same sector, then other local government will follow suit. We will also have the RE100 ceremony today. This is for the 100% renewable energy source. And by 2014, we only have 13 companies who are committed into RE100, but look at this, we have about 323 companies committed to this movement. This is not only the headquarters, but also their contractors are following suit to be the RE100 nation. This is for the nations, for the industries who are looking forward to go to the carbon neutrality. Then this is not someone else's issue. This is also issue of Korea as well. From last year, we having increasing number of companies joining to the RE100. Hyundai also committed to joining this RE100 movement. If more and more companies are joining to this movement, then we can transform into a more carbon neutral society. And the internal combustion vehicles, there are lots of people employed for the internal combustion vehicle related manufacturing sectors. We also have many related industries related with the internal combustion vehicles. But for the development of the hydrogen vehicles and electrical vehicles, that is important for the nation and also for the job creation. Nationwide, in Norway, from 2023 to no later than 2025, they will stop selling the internal combustion vehicles. Of course, Hyundai Motors also is following this trend. I saw one of the articles in the newspapers yesterday, but we have to fast to join the bandwagon of such movement globally. And also one that is threatening our economy is the departure from the EU, the carbon border tax, which is proposed not only in the EU but also other countries. This is the modulation of carbon. So this is invented from and committed by EU to start this from 2023. That is for the aluminum and steel and electrical sectors will be part of this carbon tax to be imposed. For Korea, we are importing steels to the EU that we will be under the target of such expansion and imposing of the carbon tax around the borders. So ethically, we have to deal with this carbon neutrality, but also for economy and development, we have to deal with carbon neutrality as well, thinking about the trades that we have to do. And internationally, the financial sector is changing. They are not going to invest in the industrial sectors that is going down, that will refrain themselves from investing those areas. That means for the industrial sectors, if we can go to the direction of our industrial sectors to be eco-friendly, then that will be really helpful for the investment. Under the same token, last March, about 113 financial entities in Korea have announced about the climate finance for the carbon neutrality. For carbon neutrality, it is not only the matter of the philosophy or the values set by the government, the central government. I will quote this phrase. This climate change response is not about the left or the right. It is something that whether we will go further and leading the way or left behind. We have to walk with the world. If we cannot do that, we cannot be survived in the midst of the climate crisis and also the economic changes. This is a report published by the Deloitte Economic Research Group. If we do not act on the climate crisis, then economically we will face lots of challenges. Responding to the climate crisis is also beneficial for the sake of the economy of a country. Let me briefly introduce the Carbon Neutrality Committee that I am standing as a head. We also have announced the carbon neutrality last year. And in May this year, the Carbon Neutrality Committee entered into force. Currently, it is composed of 96 people with 18 ministerial level positions as commissioners, and the private sector, labor sector, and the civil society, and the young generation and local government are working together by sending their representatives as members of the committee. And recently, we have one person from the agricultural sector. Adding and putting them into a mix, we have about 97 members. This committee is the headquarters and the core to set the direction for the carbon neutrality of Korea. The reason why I'm saying this is that we have the 8 branches under the commissioners committee. Also, we are having the consultative body in which we're talking about many different issues about the carbon neutrality. We also published the draft version of the scenario. The consultative body is talking with the civil group, the consumer group, and the citizens environment group, and also younger generation and local government and labor sector and the agricultural sectors. By doing so, we are sending their statements and also having Q&As with them. That is not the end of our movement. Not only those direct stakeholders, but also the public of Korea are the stakeholders. If we have to pay the price for the carbon neutrality, it should be everybody living in Korea who are exposed to the climate crisis, and they hold the key to solve the climate crisis. That's why we have to develop and have 500 representatives who can have acceptable ideas by the public nationwide. So nationwide, by age and by gender, we have composed 500 members of the civil representatives whose age is minimum 15 years old. It is not 19 years old because we are talking about the next generation as well. So it is not only the adults, but the school students are the member of the civic representative groups. We have developed the carbon neutrality scenario and published and shared it. And for this, we have to have responsibility, inclusiveness, and equality, and rationality, and innovation. By doing so, the carbon neutrality scenario, by looking at the draft, the level of understanding, the level of interests are different from people to people. The carbon neutrality scenario have different premises based on which to achieve the carbon neutrality, which sector should change, which sector to what extent they have to make change. So we have developed 3 scenarios with different scenario setting, which sets different targets. The scenario 1, which cannot be achieved with the help of internal domestic level, that is international cooperation required. But the 2nd and 3rd, the local government can hold the key to achieve the carbon neutrality target. This is not something legally binding. Rather, this is something that we have to look forward. We have to set standard to go forward in the future. Among those 3 scenarios, the scenario 1 is to make the most of the existing infrastructure while changing those parts that can be changed, but leave those that cannot be changed, leave as it is. And also can strengthen. The 2nd is to change our way of life and also way of technological part. 3rd is more innovative way, by using the technological sectors. So after adopting those 3 different scenarios, their level of reduction is changed, but all 3 are in the same by reducing the carbon emission. So for scenario 1, 250.4 million, and the rest are, as you can see on the slide. The transition, because they have different way of emission level reduction, is because back in 2013, the 6th electricity supply plan was published. The coal, as proposed back in 2016, we reflected the coal consumption and development that was planned back in 2016. So 2 coal-fired power plants were installed, but the 7, the rest will be in development. They will keep on in operation, but we cannot stop it in the middle, but we can. So we apply that in the scenario where we have 7 coal-fired power plants as ongoing, while others have coal power plant suspended from generating the power. So 1st and 2nd, whether we have coal-fired power plant and have LNG together, because we are still developing and operating the coal-fired power plant in the scenario 2, we have coal-fired power plant. That's why we have the remnant of the emission there. We have to do the carbon neutrality. The way that we can do it is to have the international cooperation. That's why the implication of these scenarios back in 2018 compared to the 2050, the absorption level is higher in the 2020 compared to the 2050. That's why we have to have diversified sources to absorb the emissions. Also, the concentrated acid, due to the change of the life pattern, and others should be accompanied to overcome and surpass the targets that will be shown in the scenario 1. And if we want to go for the scenario 3, then we have to have more than 78% of the renewable energy in the energy mix. That is the key. Then what should we do? To increase the renewable energy source, we have to think about the ways, and also to shut down the coal-fired power plant. What should we do? That should be something that we have to think about deeply. These are something that I already shared with you in the presentation material. And right now, as you can see, the Carbon Neutrality and Green Act Basic Law was passed. By having that law passed, we have the legal basis to make it work. The reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions and the response to the climate change, we can do it with the legal foundation now. And based on that act, the 2030 target should be higher than 35%. That means minimum 35% of the reduction should be done. And that is something that we have to seriously consider, and it is seriously being considered. And currently, the Carbon Neutrality Civic Group meeting and other town hall meetings will be done to have the final version of the Carbon Neutrality Development Draft, and it should be proposed in the COP26. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. I want to show my respect for your passion. We have limited time, and you have a lot to talk, and the Carbon Neutrality Committee as a headquarter of this movement, thank you very much for your remarks. We'll look into the presentation materials and think about the questions. And as we cannot finish our opening ceremony a little late, our luncheon will be delayed. Next is the Kumsan Gandhi High School's No Soo-jung and Yoon Jae, the team members of the Energy Transition Project. This presentation is the last presentation before our announcement and declaration. Please give them a big round of applause. Welcome. Good morning. Our names are No Soo-jung and Yoon Jae. We are from the Energy Transition Project team at Kumsan Gandhi High School. First of all, we'd like to briefly introduce our team. This project team started in September 2017. At that time, we were thinking about both the excessive consumption of electricity at school and the problem of fine dust increasing every year. Then a civic group suggested that we promote the use of eco-friendly and renewable energy. It started 5 years ago with 3 students and have been active until this year. Our team's goal is to create the energy-independent school with energy conservation and eco-friendly solar power generation as a counter to the global warming problem and the climate crisis. The climate crisis caused by climate change is easily felt by our life. If summer and winter are the only seasons in the year, even when autumn comes, it is still hot, and mosquitoes and insects do not go away. It is said the tropical fish can be caught around the Korean peninsula. Tropical fruits can be grown in the southern region due to the rising heat.
세계적으로 기후 위기의 심각성을 증명하는 것이 북극의 빙하입니다.
And many countries besides Korea are experiencing climate crisis as well. Arctic glaciers perfectly exhibit the seriousness of the global climate crisis. They melt from the rising temperatures, causing the polar bears to lose their habitats. This year, Mediterranean countries are experiencing record heat waves, with Turkey and Greece groaning under temperatures exceeding 46 degrees Celsius and wildfires. While we teenagers are afraid of these changes and think that the future is insecure, children born with the future will be more confused and afraid of the climate crisis and change. Scientists said that when the global temperature exceeds 1.5 degrees Celsius and an irreversible climate catastrophe will begin, it is said that the remaining temperature is 0.5 degrees Celsius. Since we are less than 20 years old, we are living with an anxiety that humanity may die out if this continues. In the past, we did not know the cause of the climate crisis, and we were not usually interested in environmental issues. As we started the energy transition project and studied weekly with our friends, we realized that the current climate crisis caused by global warming is more serious than we thought. We have learned that we have to make effort to reduce greenhouse gas. It is necessary to produce eco-friendly electricity, not thermal power plants that release carbon fine dust, and dangerous nuclear power plants caused the Fukushima radiation leak in Japan. Since then, we have started various campaigns for energy transition and to raise funds for the establishment of solar power plants. We have published the climate crisis as small and large festivals held at school and various festivals held in Kumsan. We have also opened a solar power plant fundraising market that sells drinks, food, soap, and bracelets, and many other things. We have made effort to promote it in various ways, such as crowdfunding and bicycle riding. We take just a moment to tell you a little more about the bike rider. Bike rider received donation for 100 won or 10,000 won per kilometer by riding a bicycle. It is a fundraising activity using a bicycle, an eco-friendly means for transportation that does not emit carbon dioxide like a car. For the first time in 2017, students from our school rode bicycles for a total of 140 kilometers from Gunsan to Boryong. Thermal power plant for 1 night and 2 days. In 2018, we rode bicycles for a total of 180 kilometers from Kumsan to Yangsan nuclear power plant. It was all been possible thanks to the support of the teachers and our friends and local governments. With the help of the parents and other people, we raised over 20 million Korean won of energy self-reliant fund. With this fund, we installed a solar power generator on the roof of our school on October 28, 2020. Our goal has become even bigger. At first, the goal was to make our school energy self-reliant, but now we are doing activities to reduce energy consumption and convert to solar power and renewable energy for the sake of the earth, for our survival, to prevent crisis, and to reduce carbon by even 1%. We decided to raise a little more money to support schoolmates who will do an energy self-reliance project with us. In order to raise seed funds to support schools that want to start a similar energy self-reliance project, we planned a bike ride for donation again this year. On June 26th, in order to start the energy transition movement in Kumsan, we rode our bicycle with a promotional poster related to energy transition on our back. We are currently preparing a relay ride for donation that will not be done only by ourselves but also in connection with other regions and schools. In addition, in order to reduce disposable products, our school cafes does not sell beverages unless students use their own tumbler. The cafe only uses eco-friendly products without using general products. When we gather in any one place, we turn off all lights except in that place and unplug unused electrical cords. That's how we practice energy conservation and environmental activities every year. Our school students are practicing small things for the environment, starting an energy transition project in nearby Kumsan and promoting it nationwide. We are attending this conference today as part of such efforts. While we teenagers do these activities, I wonder what kind of efforts adults are making for the earth that is going sick from the climate crisis. I think they must be making effort that we teenagers don't know about, but we definitely would like to adults to take action that is visible and proactive. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. The 노수정, Yoonjae, and other students from the Kumsan Gandhi High School Energy Transition Project team, thank you for your support. I think you two are very good to see together. We are passing noon just now. For carbon neutrality and great transition, the just transition, the 2021 International Conference on Coal Phase Out and Proactive Response to Climate Crisis. We are coming to an end of today's conference. So we are going to do the declaration about the action that we are going to have. That is Chungnam RE100 participation announcement will be made. Let's look at the theme video first.
지난 150년간 지구는 평균 기온이 1도가 상승했습니다. 산불, 폭염, 홍수, 태풍, 한파, 해수면 상승 등 해를 거듭할수록 기후위기는 심각해지고 있습니다. 주요 원인은 우리가 매일 사용하는 석탄, 석유, 가스와 같은 화석에너지 연소로 인한 온실가스 때문입니다. 한때 풍요로움을 가져다준 화석연료였지만 기후위기를 불러오는 원인이 되었는데요. 지구온난화를 넘어 기후 비상사태라고 불릴 정도로 이상기후가 세계 곳곳에서 일어나고 있습니다. 화석에너지의 과도한 사용은 미세먼지와 같은 오염물질을 배출할 뿐만 아니라 이상기후를 발생시키고 결국 인류의 생존에도 큰 악영향을 주고 있습니다. 각국 정부는 기후환경 시대의 대안으로 재생에너지를 확대하는 동시에 2050 탄소중립을 선언하고 있습니다. 이는 기후위기 심각성과 티핑포인트의 도래 임박이라는 현실이 큰 위험으로 다가오고 있기 때문입니다. 지금보다 지구의 온도가 1도 더 오른다면 푸른 지구를 더 이상 보지 못하게 될지 모릅니다. 지금 이 순간 우리가 살아가는 이 지구를 지켜낼 방법은 무엇일까요?
What is a way that we can do
전국
for
최초로 쏘아올린
Earth?
충청남도의
For the
탄소
first
중립.
time
충남은
in
지방정부로는
Chungnam
처음으로
province,
기후 비상 상황을
we
선포했는데요.
declared the
기후
climate
변화로부터 안전한
emergency
미래를 만들기
to
위해
make the
행정과
future
도민이
safe
하나가
from the
되어 기후
crisis
위기에
of the
적극적인
climate.
대응을 추진해
We
나가고
are
있습니다.
looking for the
충남의
proactive and
탄소 중립을
active
위한
movement
노력이
for the climate
대한민국의
crisis
환경을
actions.
지키고
Such
나아가
actions
깨끗한
will
지구를 지켜내는 일이겠죠.
save Korea and also save the Earth.
이제 우리의 탄소 중립을 위하여
Now,
도민과
for
기업,
carbon
공공부문,
neutrality,
각계의
residents,
적극적인
companies, and
지원을
public sectors at all levels
자,
are
오늘
making an
이런
all-out
영혼을 담아
effort.
충남도
Today, with this
시민사회를
wish and
대표해
promise,
당진
as a
에너지
representative
센터
of civil society, Mr. Lee In-soo, the head of Dangjin Energy Center, will hand over the Chungnam RE100 Citizen Club proposal to Governor Yang Seung-jo.
퍼포먼스에 참여하실 여러분께서는
All the
도움의 안내를
participants
받으시고 단상으로
for
참여해
the
주십시오.
performance, including Governor Yang Seung-jo, please come to the podium.
자, 그리고 이인수 당진 에너지 센터
We'll invite Governor Yang Seung-jo first,
단상으로
followed by
자리를
Mr.
해주십시오.
Lee In-soo, the head of Dangjin Energy Center.
자, 이제
Now,
도민 중심형 RE100
citizen-oriented RE100
전달해
proposal will be handed over to Governor Yang Seung-jo.
전달이 됐습니다.
It is being handed over to Governor Yang Seung-jo now.
자, 이제
Now,
선언문이 낭독이 되겠습니다.
We will read the announcement and declaration statement. In order to cope with the climate crisis and create a 2050 carbon neutrality society, we are in desperate need for active participation from all walks of life. Hearing, hoping for realization and spread of residents-oriented carbon neutrality actions. 충청남도 Province for Dispersion of Renewable Energy and Mutual Development here declares that we will participate in the carbon neutrality RE100 in 충청남do Province to spread renewable energy and financial support. 충청남do Province declares herein 1. It actively promotes the dissemination policy for provincial public sector and private sector RE100 participation. 1. It supports the installation of renewable energy on the shared property of Chungnam Province. 1. It provides administrative support for public and resident-oriented RE 100. 2021, September 8th, Governor Yang Seung-jo.
자, 이제 지사님께서 이
Now,
기에
the
담아서
Governor Yang Seung-jo, with
힘차게
all the will
이 기치를
included in the
힘차게
flag,
깃발을 흔들겠습니다.
wave
여러분,
the
우리의
RE
이
100
뜻을
flag
위하여
hard.
그리고 탄소중립을 위하여 우리 모두 도민이 하나 되어 중립을 선언합니다. 힘찬 박수를 보내주십시오. 함께 기념 촬영을 하겠습니다. 자, 세 분 함께 기념 촬영 해주시고요. 자, 그대로 지사님과 센터님 자리에 계시죠. 앞에 계신 분들 모두 앞으로 나와주시기 바랍니다. 여러 시장님들, 윤수진 위원장님 앞으로 자리해 주시기 바라고요.
The Commissioner Yoon So-jin and other excellencies, ambassadors, please come to the podium to have a photo session together. Please, excellencies, come to the podium to take a photo together.
자, 공식적으로 마스크를 낀 상태로 촬영을 하도록 하겠습니다.
Due to the COVID-19 situation, we will take photo with our mask
깃발을
on.
좀 가지고 나와서
We will also
함께 걸어주시기 바랍니다.
have our flag together with us
우리
while
센터장님이
taking
깃발을
photos.
들어줬으면 좋겠어요.
Maybe I think
지사님 옆에서 우리 깃발을 들고
it'll be
자,
great if
펼치면은 가리니까 이렇게 옆으로 하시고
if we can have Mr. Lee In-soo to hold the flag together.
자, 이때 그렇게 하십시오.
Yes, I think
자,
this is really great to
좋습니다.
take a photo.
자, 제가 RE 하면 여러분께서
If
힘차게
I say RE,
100 하고 외쳐주시기 바랍니다.
you
자,
say
힘차게 사진
100
촬영하면서 우리
together.
충남을 넘어 대한민국으로
Beyond
세계로
Chungnam
RE!
to Korea and the world,
박수를
RE
보내주시기
100.
바랍니다. 대단히
Please give
수고
them a
많이
big
하셨습니다.
hand.
이것으로 오늘
This
개회식을
brings us
모두
to an end
마치겠습니다.
of
여러분을
our
오찬장으로 안내를
conference in the
하도록
morning.
하겠습니다. 여러분 수고
You
많이
can go to
하셨습니다.
the luncheon place together. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
탄소중립 기후위기
The 2021 International Conference on Coal Phase-out and Proactive Response to Climate Crisis. Thank you for your participation. From 1400 today,